In 1965, this island had the highest concentration of people over 100 anywhere on Earth. By 2000, the children growing up on that same island were dying younger than the national average. Same island, same genes. Something changed. That island is Okinawa, Japan. And what happened there between 1960 and 2000 is one of the most important nutrition experiments ever conducted, except nobody planned it. It happened by accident, and it reveals something about the human body that most longevity advice completely ignores. This video will show why the world's longest living people barely ate meat, but more importantly, what actually happened at the cellular level when they stopped eating that way. Because the answer isn't what the wellness industry is selling. And it gets stranger, because the place on Earth with the longest life expectancy right now, it has the highest meat consumption in the world. For most of the 20th century, Okinawa was isolated. Not by choice, by geography and history. The island chain sits between Japan and Taiwan, and its people developed their own food culture over centuries of limited contact with the mainland. Researchers at the Okinawa Centenarian Study, the longest continuously running centenarian study in the world, started in 1975 by Dr. Makoto Suzuki, tracked over 3,000 participants across 5 decades. Here's what they found. The traditional Okinawan diet was 85% carbohydrates, 6% fat, 9% protein. Let it sink in. 85% carbohydrates, 6% fat. At a time when mainstream nutrition advice says to eat fewer carbs and more fat, the longest living humans in recorded history were doing the exact opposite. And almost none of the calories came from meat. The primary food, accounting for roughly 60% of everything they ate, was the purple sweet potato. Not rice, not fish, sweet potatoes. Supplemented with vegetables, legumes, small amounts of soy, and occasionally, maybe once or twice a month, pork. Their daily caloric intake was around 1,785 calories, about 10 to 15% fewer calories than standard guidelines recommend. And critically, they weren't restricting on purpose. This was just how food availability worked on a remote island before industrial agriculture arrived. So they were eating mostly carbs, almost no fat, very little protein, and fewer total calories than anyone would recommend today. And they were outliving everyone on the planet. Then everything changed.
This truckload of bombs will soon be falling on Vietnam from a giant American B-52 bomber. The plane is taking off from Okinawa, a tiny Pacific island off the coast of Japan. Okinawa, captured from the Japanese in 1945, is still governed by America, the last piece of occupied territory from the Second World War still in Western hands.
After the 1960s, American military presence on the island brought fast food chains, processed foods, and Western dietary patterns. The shift was rapid. Fat intake went from 6% to 27% of total calories. Sweet potatoes were replaced by white rice and bread. Processed food entered school cafeterias, and within one generation, the results were measurable. Obesity rates climbed. Type 2 diabetes increased. Cardiovascular mortality rose. And the most striking finding? Modern Okinawans born after 1960 now have mortality rates higher than mainland Japan. This is why researchers call Okinawa a natural experiment. Same genetics, same geography, same climate. The only variable that changed was the food. And the health outcomes flipped completely within 40 years.
Whereas Okinawan longevity is now a thing of the past. Okinawa now hosts more than a dozen KFCs. Their saturated fat tripled, They went from eating essentially no cholesterol to a few Big Macs worth, tripled their sodium, and are now just as potassium deficient as Americans, getting less than half of the recommended minimum daily intake of 4,700 milligrams a day. In 2 generations, Okinawans have gone from the leanest Japanese to the fattest.
But, and here's where this gets more interesting than a simple eat more plants message. What was the food actually doing inside the body? Not philosophically, at the cellular level. Inside every cell, there's a system that acts like a switch. Scientists call it mTOR, mechanistic target of rapamycin. When mTOR is activated, the cell is in growth mode, building, dividing, expanding. When mTOR is suppressed, the cell shifts into repair mode. It starts cleaning house, breaking down damaged components, recycling old proteins, fixing DNA errors. This process is called autophagy. It's essentially the body's maintenance system.
It is a certain pathway, mainly the master controller of protein synthesis, okay? That's really what it is. And when it's high, it promotes growth in the body, and even it could simulate the growth of cancer or tumors, okay? When it's low, the pathways are different. It's more for repair and maintenance of the body, okay?
Here's the connection. Animal protein, specifically the amino acids in meat and dairy, is one of the strongest activators of mTOR. It tells cells, grow, build, expand. Plant protein activates it significantly less. When researchers at the University of Southern California tracked over 6,000 adults for 18 years, they found something that makes this tangible. Adults aged 50 to 65 who ate high amounts of animal protein had a 75% increase in overall mortality and a 4-fold increase in cancer death. But, and this is the part every vegan advocacy video leaves out, after age 65, the relationship flipped. Higher protein was associated with reduced mortality, because at that age, the body's problem isn't excessive growth, it's muscle loss. This is what Walter Longo, director of the Longevity Institute at USC, calls the protein paradox. The same food that accelerates aging at 55 protects against it at 75.
Somebody's reporting a high protein intake before age 65, that's usually associated with all-cause mortality and a major increase in cancer mortality. Now, if you ask an 80-year-old, or at least in the enhanced database responded, I have a very low protein intake, they usually did worse, right?
And the traditional Okinawan diet, with its naturally low protein intake, was essentially keeping the repair switch on for decades. Accidental cellular maintenance. That's not a philosophy, that's a mechanism. And it explains why these populations weren't just living longer, they were living longer without the diseases that kill most people in developed countries. Now, there's a piece of this that doesn't fit cleanly, and it's worth being honest about. Hong Kong. Highest per capita meat consumption in the world, roughly double the American average, and the longest life expectancy on the planet. Women in Hong Kong live to an average of 88. If the story were as simple as eat less meat, live longer, Hong Kong would be a disaster zone. It's not. So what's going on? 3 things. Hong Kong also has extremely low smoking rates, one of the world's best public healthcare systems, and a culture where almost nobody owns a car. Walking is the default. And despite eating a lot of meat, the diet also includes enormous quantities of vegetables, seafood, and traditional preparations. But here's the real insight. Researchers studying Hong Kong's longevity consistently find that the non-dietary factors, physical activity, low stress, social connection, access to healthcare, explain most of the advantage. And this brings up something that gets buried in almost every longevity video. The Okinawan Centenarian Study, the same 50-year study mentioned earlier, identified 4 factors for exceptional longevity. Diet was one, The other 3? Daily integrated physical activity, lifelong social support networks. In Okinawa, they're called moai, small groups of 5 to 7 people formed in childhood that meet for life. And ikigai, a reason to wake up in the morning. A meta-analysis in PLOS medicine found that strong social relationships improved survival odds by 50%. That's comparable to quitting smoking, and it's bigger than the effect of exercise alone. So when someone asks, why do these people live so long? The honest answer is, it's not just the sweet potatoes. It's the sweet potatoes, plus the walking, plus the community, plus the purpose. Remove any one of those, and the diet alone doesn't produce the same results. That's why simply copying a Blue Zone's meal plan in a modern Western city, isolated, sedentary, stressed, rarely works. A 2022 review in the journal Maturitas found that fewer than 10% of people who adopt longevity-style diets maintain them for even 7 months, because the diet was never designed to work alone. The data from Okinawa, from the Adventist Health Study, from every longevity population ever studied, says the same thing, just not the simplified version that fits in a headline. Eating mostly plants, in moderate amounts, alongside people you care about, while moving your body every day and having something to live for, that's the pattern. Not a diet, a pattern. And the cellular science confirms it. Low to moderate protein intake suppresses the growth pathways that accelerate aging. High dietary fiber feeds the gut bacteria that reduce inflammation. Natural caloric moderation triggers repair mechanisms that keep cells functioning longer. None of that requires a label. None of it requires perfection. And none of it requires giving up anything forever. It just requires paying attention. The Okinawans didn't know about mTOR. They didn't track macros. They didn't read nutrition labels. They just ate what grew around them, stayed close to the people who mattered, and kept moving. Maybe the lesson isn't to copy their diet. Maybe it's to notice what modern life has quietly removed. Speaking of things modern life is doing to the body without most people realizing, there's a reason so many people feel exhausted by 2 p.m., and it has nothing to do with sleep. That video is on screen now. This is Veg Out.